writer and later an author was my dream since probably I was like 12 years old. I grew up in a house like full of books. Like I was not, how do I put this? I've always had a smart mouth, so I spent a lot of time on punishment. So it was like, go to your room, there's no TV, there's no video games, but you have access to all the, the books in the house. Well, okay. So I started reading and I fell in love with books. And I think when I was around 12 or so, it was like some rainy Saturday and I was on punishment. And my mother had left her copy of Waiting to Exhale, like on the kitchen table or something. And so I picked it up and I crashed on the couch, and I have no business reading this. But my mother's theory is like, well, it's a book. What exactly are you gonna do with it? So I sat there and I read it in like an 8-hour stretch, and I was just like, oh my God, I want to write like this. And it wasn't necessarily that I understood all the plots in the book, but I knew that what I was reading, like, it sounded like the conversations that took place when like my mom's friends would come over and they'd be in the kitchen and I'd try to go in and they'd like shh and then send me back out. Or when I'd go to the salon, and I liked that I would read all these books, but they were from authors who were so much older than me and actually from a different era. I mean, we're talking Harlem Renaissance, or we're talking about Baldwin and Wright and Ellison and Morrison, and they were talking about a different time period, and I didn't hear anybody's voice that was just like fresh. And it just talked like people that I knew, and I knew that I wanted to do something like that. The problem was, is I come from DC, everybody either gets a government job, or they go to law school and they go work on the Hill, or they become a lobbyist and they run their own firm. Those are like the 3 basic occupations for everyone who lives in DC. So being raised in Maryland, like I was kind of like, okay, I think I want to be like a writer, and everyone was like, no, that's a hobby, sweetie. That's not an occupation. So I went off to college and I was on the pre-law track, and I took all these English classes. I'd finished all my requirements by the first semester of my junior year because I just kept taking more and more English classes just for kicks. And a professor pulled me aside and she was like, what are you planning to do with yourself? And I was like, oh, I'm going to law school, because that's the right answer. And she was like, honey, you're a writer. And I was just like, eh. And then I remember there was another time, I was sitting in the back of one of my English classes, and if you were here earlier, you heard me talk about like, I had this sort of party girl life for like a really long time, but I always managed to get my work done in the meantime. But I was in college and I just spent weeks like partying. I was like, where did the time go? And there was an event, there was not an event, there was a paper that was due, and I realized maybe like the day before. So I went to a party, I came back at midnight, and I stayed up all night, and I wrote this story, or not the story, I wrote this essay, and I turned it in. And 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in the back of the class, and I'm just really sort of just waiting for the semester to be over. And my professor starts reading like the first paragraph of this essay. And like I'm just sort of halfway tuned in, and I was like, wow, that's like really great writing. Like if I could write like that, like, I would totally. And like I didn't even recognize my own words. It was like she got to like the last paragraph, and I was like, oh crap, that's me. And I was like, maybe there is something to this writing thing. So I eventually pursued it. Like I told my parents, like, you know what, I'm not gonna go to law school. And my father like just lost it. But I was like, I will go to graduate school, and I'm gonna go for journalism, and that's what I'm gonna go after. And it was just something I was really passionate about, and I was like, there's nothing else that I can just spend all my time doing. Like I can sit down at a keyboard and I can like type and type and type and type, and then I look up and I'm like, where did the time go? And I was like, that's how I want to spend my life. Like if I have to work to earn money, then I want to be doing something that I love. And so that was it.